It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer face off for the final time, clashing over tax and politicians gambling over the election.
I completely share your anger. I was as frustrated as you are furious when I learnt about these allegations. That's why, alongside the Gambling Commission, we initiated our own internal inquiries.
If you listen to people in the audience across the country more often, you might not be quite so out of touch. Beverly.
And I'm live in Nottingham tonight for the last head-to-head encounter for the two men hoping to be in Downing Street after the next general election.
Also this evening, Bolivia's president warns the army after state television showing forces ramming through the doors of the government palace. Constance Martin and Mark Gordon found guilty of 2 charges, including concealing the birth of their child, as the pair are expected to face a retrial. Julian Assange lands back in Australia to faithful supporters after agreeing to a plea deal and admitting to 1 charge of espionage.
How did that moment feel, seeing him on the tarmac?
I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. This is real.
A court hears of the voice messages of the man accused of plotting to chloroform and kidnap Holly Willoughby. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. We're now just over a week to the general election and the leaders have taken part in their last debate. At times it was heated and the pair answered questions from the BBC audience about immigration and tax, a big issue. Well, the leaders also battled with a noisy demonstration which gathered outside the building in Nottingham.
Well, it's the last time, sorry Anna, that these two leaders are going to go head-to-head before the election next week. Coming up, we're going to fact-check some of the claims that have been made and bring you the latest verdict of who came out on top. But first, let's speak to our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, who's with me tonight. Sam, what's your snap verdict?
8 days to go until the general election, and tonight, Ali, was an important moment for Rishi Sunak because he put his opponent on the spot, and Keir Starmer because he was challenged over the issues that divide the two main parties in this campaign. It was a performance by the Prime Minister that I think he would have been really happy with. Some of his aides were punching the air afterwards. A performance that he would have desperately needed earlier in the campaign. A clear strategy from Rishi Sunak to demand answers from Keir Starmer on tax and whether it will go up, on welfare and how you get people off benefits and into work, on smashing the gangs and whether the Rwanda policy and a deterrent is needed, on women's rights and whether you need to change legislation, and on free movement, which he said would need to inch back if there were to be improvements to our trade deal. Each issue, the Prime Minister spies a difference that puts him on the side of more voters. And each time, he pummeled his opponent on the subject, demanded answers, and there was a range from Keir Starmer. Sometimes he had specifics, but sometimes he did not. That strategy, however, Ali, although executed in a way I think that the Conservative Party tonight are very happy with, has nevertheless been judged not decisively in Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak's favour, but the verdict of the public watching that debate was 50-50.
Fascinating stuff, Sam. Yeah, it certainly felt like Rishi Sunak was definitely the man on the attack in that debate. Well, we can bring you Sam Coates' piece, his roundup of what happened during that last debate.
Facing off for the final time, the last debate of the campaign and the last chance to change a race that looks to have only one winner. The Prime Minister in desperate need of a win. The election betting scandal has dogged him for weeks. Neither side keen to give clear answers about this scandal.
If you've acted now on those to withdraw support from those two Conservative candidates, what did you find in that investigation?
Well, Michelle, you know there's an independent investigation which is ongoing, which is why I can't say anything further about that.
Labour has suspended one of its candidates too, its leader just as hazy on the details.
Do you know that none of your other candidates have placed similar bets?
Well, I've made clear to my candidates what the standards are.
Some of the most heated moments of the campaign so far, the two men fighting over spending.
How many hundreds is it? Is it 200?
I'm going to turn to the next question now.
Is it 400?
I think the Prime Minister must have put a bet on how many times he's going to interrupt me.
A pattern emerging, the Labour leader rarely keen to be drawn on details.
How would you are seeking power, what would you get those numbers down to through the approach you're talking about?
We want to get the numbers right down. We want to, with a plan to get people back into work.
The Prime Minister aggressive in his attacks.
You want to be in charge, but you've got nothing to say to people about what you would do about it. This election is about the future.
On immigration, Starmer pinning the blame on his opponent.
It's not just a border security issue, it's actually a national security issue because the government's lost control of who's coming and what their background is.
Rishi Sunak again arguing the Labour leader doesn't have his own plan.
You're going to sit down with the Iranian ayatollahs. Are you going to try and do a deal with the Taliban? It's completely nonsensical what you are saying, right? You are taking people for fools.
One word echoed over and over by the Prime Minister over a dozen times.
Do not surrender our borders to Keir Starmer. Do not surrender your finances to their tax rises.
You've got a very...
Outside the hall in Nottingham, protesters making their feelings clear. Their chants audible in the room too. Trailing in the polls, his campaign dominated by gaffes and sleaze. This may have been the high point of a torrid few weeks for Rishi Sunak, but will it be enough to keep him in number 10? Sam Coates, Sky News, Nottingham.
Sam Coates there with the latest from that debate that has just finished here in Nottingham. Well, let's bring in our data and forensic correspondent, shall we, Tom Cheshire, who is with me now. Now, Tom, you've been watching the debate tonight and looking into some of the things that were said. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing how much time was spent on tax, all the claims made about that tax and spending. Let's break that down. This is the tax burden going all the way back to just after the Second World War. You can see, here we go. It has been getting higher and higher and higher. But what we can do is overlay each party's plans on top of that. And you can see, well, this is the current plans under the current government. Conservatives, slightly less than current plans, but it is still going up. So Rishi Sunak saying Keir Starmer taxes are going to go up, the tax burden is going to go up. But if you compare that to Lib Dems, and then if you compare that to Labour here, it is less than that. But the thing that wasn't really addressed is where people are going to make these cuts. We've heard a lot about this conspiracy of silence. This is from the Institute of Fiscal Studies about where spending is going to come from. So basically, all the parties have agreed that there is going to be a 1% increase in overall day-to-day public spending in real terms. Now, that is going to be across the board, but actually some are protected areas. So around 3% is protected. That's things like NHS, that's defence, where spending is actually going to go up under both plans, and other elements, Foreign Office there as well. But look at this. This is the unprotected area. So if that's going up, this has to go down. And these unprotected areas carry things like law courts as well. They also carry local councils. We had both leaders talking about councils going bust under the opposite party's leadership. That includes local government. We have seen huge cuts to local government over the last 14 years. So where that comes in all of this is left really to be decided. Another thing that was mentioned here is about the green spending. This is from Labour's manifesto. They said that there were hundreds of billions of pounds, talking about a Telegraph story today. This is actually what's in the Labour manifesto. It's not nearly as much as that. There is an extra £1.1 billion that can be made up through borrowing. But Labour's plans include private finance. This is what they actually want to spend over the next Parliament. So all that talk about tax, it did feel like there was a slight plan there. And I think it was a plan, because if you look at this, this was actually what was happening. If you learn on Twitter today, you saw this site, Tax Check UK. This is actually the Conservative headquarter press office. They changed their font, they changed all their branding to make it look like they're doing tax tech. So this suggests it was a really deliberate strategy to really focus on tax. And that's interesting, because what do people actually think about tax? Well, when it comes to the issues that matter to voters, you've got economy, you've got health, you've got immigration and asylum, tax comes all the way down there. So it's not really maybe for the general public. They're looking at a specific segment of voters. Now, one of those issues that does resonate with the public is small boats. We heard about that various claims and counterclaims. Let's just lay it out. This is where we are this year, and it does look like it's on course to be a record year. The votes did come down. 2023 was less than 2022, but where we are now, that is going up. The other thing, though, of course, is that small boats, it's a very, very tiny part of this. One of the questions from the audience was, how are we going to close our borders? Small boats is just that vanishingly small part. It's not even all of that other asylum. This is total immigration. That's what really was another conspiracy of silence. It wasn't properly addressed, really, by either party. And, you know, you put that in context over what we've seen historically, all the way back to 1855. This is sort of the where we're going. More people entering and leaving. This big spike at the end. Neither parties really talked about that because there are difficult decisions to be made. Now, the thing they did talk about, just to finish with, was a betting scandal. Just to remind you, here we are, get out of the way there. These are bets made around the course of the general election. That's what we've been talking about. There was a lot of talk from both of them about that, and I think this will show you why, actually. So, thinking back over the past few days, which news story did you hear about the most? This is a YouGov poll. You can see what's happened. Election betting scandal has really cut through. It's got more attention than the sad death of Michael Mosley back then. It's more attention than the general election, more than Euro 2024. This is a really, really big story. It's why both leaders gave it so much time. It's why it might be a more important story, because it hasn't finished, a more important story than the debate tonight.
Thanks so much, Tom, for delving into the detail there for us. Well, we've heard from the leaders. We've tried to give you a bit of a sense of the mood in the spin room here. But how are voters feeling about this campaign trail? Well, with politicians blitzing the country on battle buses, Sky News has spoken to people who rely on regular buses, and in particular, the night bus service. Our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, has more.
As night falls over the Bolton interchange, a different world comes to life. It isn't what the politicians see from election battle buses, but what the shift workers, those out on the town, those with a different perspective on the country, see.
Trying to catch this 125. That isn't it, is it? No, no.
What do you think about the state of the country?
Do you really want me to tell you? It's in a mess.
Are you hopeful at all that the election will make a difference?
You won't even vote.
Really?
No, probably not. I didn't last time or the time before, if I remember rightly.
Why is that?
I don't know, I just can't be bothered. You know, and that's not good really, because I should be, because if you don't do it, you can't blame anybody but yourself, can you? You know.
What do you say, politics? You can't vote for any of them. Press that buzzer, I'm getting off. The thing is, let me escape here. The money's no good for this, have we done it? The country, Labour's going to get in definitely, and they're no better than the Conservatives. And they all want the pensioners to die early because we're costing them too much. Well, I'm staying alive, I'm telling you. I'm going nowhere, other than home now.
We're coming from Blackburn and we're going back to Falmouth. We're just planning on getting our own place so he has, like, you know, his own place to grow up and make it his home. There's not really anything going. The lists are so long. We've been on it for months.
How does it make you feel, though, about the state of the country?
It's not good, man. It's not good. If it was up to me, I'd move country. Like, I don't want to live here for the rest of my life.
Where's the country at the minute?
Oh, I'm 58. I was saying this to my son a few days ago, and this, I'm not political particularly, but I've never known this country being such a state. And we're the 5th richest country in the world. I find it incredible.
Is there anything that makes you feel optimistic about?
Well, bus fares make me feel optimistic. £2, you can't argue with that. But I think even then they're subsidised, but which is great. So look, our country's a great country. It's just the government's letting us down. That's my opinion on it.
As those journeys come to an end, the interchange falls quiet for a few hours. They'll do it all again tomorrow, and with the election on the horizon, the people whose lives intersect here, wondering what might lie ahead for them. Greg Milam, Sky News, Bolton.
Well, Greg Milam there speaking to people on the night bus. As you can see behind me, the spin room here in Nottingham is still in overdrive, but someone who can always cut through the spin is Sam Coates. It seemed to me like Rishi Sunak definitely had a plan going into that. Was it the right one?
It's a great question, Ali, because I've actually got some data in the last few moments from YouGov's Snap poll. Look, Rishi Sunak went into that debate wanting to highlight dividing lines on immigration, the economy, welfare, relations with the EU and tax. And he wanted to highlight the divide between him and Keir Starmer, thinking that would put him on the right side of the public. But we've got some polling about who won in all of those areas. And actually, while the Prime Minister did win overall, he beat Keir Starmer on immigration, he beat Keir Starmer on tax, and unfortunately for the Prime Minister, actually, Keir Starmer was ahead when it comes to Britain's relationship with the EU. Welfare and benefits, I think the Prime Minister would have thought he had a win with that, but 51% of people thought Keir Starmer did better on the subject of welfare and benefits. 39% thought Rishi Sunak did better. And most importantly of all, the economy. Keir Starmer won in that debate on the economy. So Rishi Sunak drew dividing lines, thinks he exposed his opponent, and the public ended up siding with that opponent in many of the key topics.
Sam Coates, our Deputy Political Editor there, thank you. Well, that's it from us here in Nottingham. Amazing to think 5 weeks ago today, Rishi Sunak stood on those steps in the rain announcing the general election, and this really was the last throw of the dice, the last big event, the last debate, Anna, of this general election campaign. Will it shift the dial? That remains to be seen.
Ali, thank you. Well, breaking news this evening, and in a television address in the last half hour, the president of Bolivia has said the nation is facing an attempted coup. Concerns were raised after President Luis Arce warned of an irregular deployment of troops in the capital. Well, let's bring in our US correspondent Martha Kellner and describe what we've seen so far, Martha, as the president declares he is standing firm against this coup.
Yeah, this is very much still a developing situation, Anna. But this afternoon, Bolivian armed forces took control of the central square in La Paz, which is the capital city of Bolivia. An armoured vehicle was rammed through the gates of the presidential palace there, prompting the President Luis Arce to say he believes that this is a coup attempt. The former Bolivian President Evo Morales has also weighed into this situation, saying that he believes a top army general, a man named Jose Zuniga, is behind this coup attempt. Local media reporting that General Zuniga was removed from his position earlier this week. They say they believe that could have prompted this coup attempt. And there's a remarkable video currently being replayed on Bolivian television of this coming together within the presidential palace hallways of President Luis Arce and General Zuniga. And you can actually hear President Arce saying to Zuniga, "I am your captain. I order you to withdraw your soldiers, and I will not allow this insubordination." President Arce noting the irregular militarisation, in his words, of the army. General Zuniga, for his part, calling for regime change, saying that the children and people of Bolivia have no future. In the last few moments, there was an address on television, very brief remarks from President Arce to his people, saying we cannot allow for these coup attempts. That was followed by loud shouts of long live democracy by both the president and his supporters, whom he surrounded himself with.
Martha, updating us on the situation in Bolivia, that developing story, as you said. Thank you. Constance Martin and Mark Gordon have been found guilty of concealing the birth of a child and perverting the course of justice. The couple pleaded not guilty to all of the charges against them, including manslaughter by gross negligence, causing or allowing the death of a child, and child cruelty. They're expected to face a retrial next year. Ashna Hurinag has this report.
This is the baby daughter Constance Martin and Mark Gordon didn't want anyone knowing about. For weeks, they moved around the country, living off-grid with their newborn, Victoria, so they wouldn't be found. Before the jury and their trial were discharged, we can now report they found the couple guilty of concealing her birth and perverting the course of justice. A nationwide manhunt lasting 54 days began in January last year. The jury was shown footage from their time on the run. The couple had wanted to evade authorities after their 4 other children were taken into care. Just days after their arrest, Victoria's body was found in a shopping bag in this shed. A tragic outcome retired social worker Andrew Rees believes could have been prevented.
Absolutely, yeah. I've had cases where families and children are missing, but generally speaking, where unborn children are concerned, the mother is booked into a hospital, so the local authority and the other agencies can act to ensure the safeguarding of that child.
The jury heard the couple had frequent dealings with social services until in January 2022, a family court decided their previous 4 children should be adopted. In his 30 years working in the industry, Andrew says this is among the most heartbreaking of cases.
This couple were clearly aware of who was looking for them, and clearly were able to evade all the agencies that were trying to support them in the first instance. So to me, that was they had the ways and means of actually evading all those professionals. And it's rather sad that the tragic ending.
Martin and Gordon had pleaded not guilty to all of the charges, including manslaughter by gross negligence, causing and allowing the death of a child, and child cruelty. Their trial started in January, but after 72 hours of deliberating, the jury were dismissed in June after failing to reach verdicts. The pair will now face a retrial, starting on the 3rd of March next year. Ashna Haranag, Sky News.
The WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, is officially a free man, landing in Australia today after agreeing a plea deal with US authorities. In 2010, Julian Assange's WikiLeaks released footage of a US helicopter attack in Baghdad, which killed 11 people, including 2 Reuters journalists. And the same year, the whistleblowing website released hundreds of thousands of documents in the largest leak of its kind in US military history. Separately, in 2010, Sweden accused Julian Assange of rape and molestation, claims that he denied. In 2012, after losing an appeal against extradition to Sweden, Mr. Assange was granted asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He remained there until 2019, when his asylum was revoked and UK police arrested him. He was then transferred to Belmarsh prison. US extradition was denied at first, but after a successful appeal, the UK approved it in 2022. Earlier this year, Julian Assange launched his final appeal against extradition, which stalled. And then, yesterday, it emerged that a deal had been struck between the US and his legal team. He pleaded guilty to 1 criminal count in a US court on the island of Saipan. And today, Julian Assange touched down in Canberra. Sky's Cordelia Lynch was there to witness the moment he returned. A warning her report contains some flash photography.
Julian Assange is finally free. These, his first steps back on Australian soil. After 14 years of fighting, it was a passionate return. A long embrace with his wife, a grateful hug for his father, and a tearful, defining moment for so many of his supporters.
It's teamwork. Teamwork. This is people power that got him home. He represents for us the bravery of Australians and the truth-telling. And we don't want America to think that we are a suburb of America.
I just want to know that he is with his family, he's with his children, because they stole his entire 40s.
How does it feel to be a free man, Mr. Assange?
But America did secure a guilty plea. Assange only emerging from this US court in the Pacific after admitting 1 charge of conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information. A compromise, yes, but his lawyers see it as a critical win for press freedom. His wife is almost unimaginable.
How did that moment feel, seeing him on the tarmac?
I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. And this is real.
And how is he feeling?
Very happy.
He is still a criminal in the eyes of America, but his team is already pushing for a pardon.
How hopeful and how confident are you that your husband will be pardoned? And what do you think has been at the absolute core of the shifting sands here that's enabled his release?
I think he'll be pardoned if the press unite to push back against this precedent, because it affects all of you. It affects your future ability to inform the public.
He did unite his government. It's soft diplomacy key.
There was nothing to be gained by the further incarceration of Mr Assange, and we wanted him brought home. Tonight, that has happened. We have got this done.
But to his critics, Julian Assange is a reckless anarchist, a man who endangered lives by leaking state secrets.
Undoubtedly, some of the information that he put on the internet has caused great harm to British military people over the years in places like Iraq and Afghanistan.
Assange inspires extreme feeling, but his lifeline is arguably about something far greater than him. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Canberra, Australia.
An inquest jury has ruled that failures by multiple agencies contributed to the death of Zara Alina, who was murdered on her way home in East London 2 years ago. Her killer, Jordan McSweeney, had been released from prison on licence just 9 days before the attack. Police had been unable to make contact with him after his release, but waited 5 days before initiating his recall to prison. Sky Shaman Freeman-Powell has this report.
Described as a free spirit with the most caring heart, Zara Alina is now a reminder of the dangers that women face after being raped and murdered while simply walking home. It was exactly 2 years ago that Jordan McSweeney stalked Zara Alina before beating her to death. He was found guilty in 2022. Today, those in positions of power were held to account, as her family maintains that her murder could have been avoided. Her family say Zara should be alive today. Her brutal murder could and should have been prevented. It's clear from the evidence we have heard that there are significant issues of under-resourcing across the system.
You're under arrest for rape and murder of a female at Cranbrook Road.
McSweeney was a serial offender with 28 convictions for 69 offences. He had been released from prison just a week before the murder, free to roam the streets when he should have been considered a high risk and monitored. Today, an inquest found that multiple state agencies failed to follow policies, share intelligence and assess the risk of serious harm.
There was a lack of professional curiosity. Well, to get professional curiosity, you do need to have an understanding about offenders, and not just the thing that they are currently up against, but looking at the whole pattern of their offending history.
Probation officials say significant steps have been taken to address failings identified in Zara Alina's case, as her family hold on to hope that the verdict will protect women and girls from violent males. Shaman Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
A man in his 20s who is understood to be a member of the Labour Party has been arrested by police investigating a sexting scam targeting political figures. The suspect was arrested in Islington in North London on suspicion of harassment and offences under the Online Safety Act. The investigation began in April after at least 12 men with links to Westminster received unsolicited messages. The then Conservative MP William Wragg admitted giving colleagues his phone numbers to a suspected scammer and resigned the party whip. The Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich has gone on trial in Russia, accused of spying for the CIA. Prosecutors have said the journalist was caught red-handed, but haven't provided any evidence of that. The United States has accused Russia of using him as a bargaining chip for prisoner swaps. The driver of a car which crashed into a school, killing 2 8-year-old girls in Wimbledon in southwest London last July, will not be prosecuted because she'd suffered an epileptic seizure behind the wheel. The parents of Nouria Sajjad and Selena Lau have condemned the decision, saying they remain unconvinced that the investigation was thorough. The driver, Claire Fremantle, had never had a seizure before. She has expressed her deepest sorrow. Phil Foden has temporarily left England's training camp to return home for what's been described as a pressing family matter. It's understood his partner is due to give birth to their third child. He is expected to be back in time for England's next game on Sunday, which tonight we learnt will be against Slovakia. The trial of a man accused of plotting to kidnap, rape and murder Holly Willoughby has heard voice messages that he allegedly sent detailing his plans. The court was told that Gavin Plum bought chloroform and assembled restraint kits and even identified an abandoned farm to take Ms Willoughby to. He denies the charges. Sky's crime correspondent Martin Brunt reports.
Hands and ankle shackles, ring and ball gag.
This is the restraint kit Gavin Plum allegedly assembled in a plot to kidnap, rape and murder Holly Willoughby. Jurors were also shown a photograph of similar gear Plum said to have sent to a man he was trying to recruit to his plan.
And it's another dramatic week in Southlands.
Plum was said to have developed an obsession with Miss Willoughby. He wanted to turn his fantasy into the real thing.
3rd of the 10th, 2023, Holly.
Plum, a security guard, denies soliciting murder and encouraging kidnap and rape. The court was told he sent these photos of Miss Willoughby to his would-be accomplice and planned to abduct her at the home she shared with her husband. The prosecutor said he also sent this voice message.
We're going to hit it at night, less traffic on the road, etc. Chloroform, both of them. That way then they can both be easily restrained.
He ordered chloroform online and shared this picture, said the prosecutor, and photos of imitation weapons. Jurors heard another voice message, allegedly from Plum.
We're then going to force her to make a video, just saying that she come with us under her own free will, that she's with us under her own free will. No, she's fully consenting into everything we do to her. So that covers us.
The prosecutor said Gavin Plum identified an abandoned stud farm where he could keep Miss Willoughby prisoner. Over many months, he discussed in detail, graphic and highly sexualised, what he planned to do to her. Jurors were shown messages the prosecution says he exchanged with another would-be recruit. He turned out to be an undercover police officer. The officer is to give evidence by video link in the morning. Martin Brunt, Sky News, Chelmsford.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, joined by the Daily Mirror's Associate Editor, Kevin Maguire, and the Telegraph's Deputy Comment Editor, Annabelle Denham. Welcome to both of you. Plenty more still to come then on the newspapers. Back in just a moment.